Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 132 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we're coming to you once again from the international headquarters of GSM Services. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We're highlighting another great organization this week as we highlight Girls on the Run of Greater Charlotte. That includes Gaston County. We have Karen Gipson with us today, who is the executive director of the organization. Karen, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
Very good. So, as usual, Karen, we're going to get right to it. The first question we like to ask is just, if you don't mind, just tell us, before we get into talking specifics about the organization, just tell us a little bit about yourself, anything that you'd like to share for our listeners.
Well, sure. Again, Karen Gipson. I have been living in North Carolina for maybe 16 years. I'm originally from Chicago. I'm a Midwest girl, but absolutely love it down here. Got 2 kids, and they've grown up down here, and they're flourishing, and they love it. And so much that my parents moved down here about 7 years ago.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yep. And the whole family's together, and we absolutely
So you couldn't get here fast enough.
Could not get out of that cold fast enough.
Well, interestingly enough, as we're recording this, my daughter, who Naomi just mentioned, she just landed in Chicago yesterday. Her and some friends are going to Lollapalooza.
Oh, okay.
That's
okay.
This weekend. That is
way
beyond my, maybe in a former life when I was younger, I might have done something like that, but no, not these days. So I'm going to assume that a lot of our listeners have probably heard of Girls on the Run. And we were talking before we started recording that both myself and my daughters participated here. And man, it was great when they were younger and getting them into running and because that's something that I do. It's something we were able to share. So it was terrific. So just for maybe those listeners who aren't familiar with Girls on the Run, you kind of just let us know tell us a little bit about the organization, what's the mission, and then we'll get into maybe a few more specifics.
Sure. So Girls on the Run actually started here in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina in 1996 at Charlotte Country Day School with just 13 girls. We're a 501c3 organization, and our mission is to really unlock the limitless potential of young girls through our program that runs in after schools, 3rd through 8th grade girls. And we have an evidence-based curriculum that's facilitated by volunteers where they're learning a lot of critical life skills, physical activity, mental health. So really focusing on standing up for others, how to make good decisions, critical thinking, how to pause before you react, to things. A lot of girls right now are dealing with a lot of bullying, cyberbullying, things of that nature. And our program really helps them really focus on themselves holistically to learn those skills to be productive women of tomorrow.
Is that, shift gears, you said cyberbullying, and, I'm old enough that I'm so old that really wasn't a thing, right? Back when I was a teenager. Is that something that because it's so much easier, is that something is more prevalent bullying in general because of
It is.
internet, social media? Again, I am talking way out of my realm of understanding.
Well, our data shows that girls, by the time they're 9 or 10 years old, about 50%, over 50% of them are getting bullied, and a lot of cyberbullying because of the access that the young girls have right now to, as we talked about earlier, cell phones and iPads and computers and different things. So, we find
it seems to me, again, the things that I am involved with, it seems to that, again, my totally unprofessional, unscientific opinion is that it's often things that you would never say to somebody face to face, right? It just seems like it's easier, and you can hide behind these online personas. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Naomi, keep me on track, Naomi. So how did you get involved with Girls on the Run in your current position, and how did that happen?
Well, like you, my daughter was also in Girls on the Run. She's 24 now, so I know the impact of it firsthand. But I love all things youth development. I worked for the YMCA for 20 years. That's what really got me to North Carolina. And as we were talking about the pandemic earlier, when the pandemic hit, a lot of things changed for a lot of organizations, and found myself, kind of thinking about, if YMCA's close or if things change in the model and what I'm used to working, I might need to find something a little different. And actually, a recruiter found me on LinkedIn and was talking to me about the organization and the program, which again I'm very familiar with because my daughter was in it, and just really came full circle for me. I really believe in the mission.
Okay, so it's good. So I guess you never know, how those one door closes, something opens, or something.
Absolutely.
I don't want to say something good came out of COVID, but because it just was such a strange, wacky, hard to explain time for all of us. There was nobody who was not impacted somehow, right, during that time. But maybe good for Girls on the Run, right? Can you maybe describe? I'm not sure how to phrase this question. We typically say, what are some of the initiatives of the organization? But maybe a day in the life, a day in the week. What are some of the things that are going on? Just throughout the year. Some of the specific initiatives, programs, events, however you want to describe that.
Sure.
For our listeners.
Yeah. Well, we focus. Our schedule is really school schedules because our programs run in the schools and not just in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, and Gaston County, but Cleveland, Catawba, and Lincolnton County as well. So right now our team is just really preparing for the school year. We typically will have anywhere between 85 to almost 100 sites in all of those various counties. Within a year, we'll have over 600 volunteers. So we're very dependent on volunteers and find great value in volunteers, let me say that. And we also have special events throughout the year. We have a large fundraising event called our Sneakers Soiree. Last year was our first time actually doing it, where we get the community, get our sponsors, our board to come out and raise money for Girls on the Run. Our program won't turn any girl away for inability to pay. We do have a financial assistance model, and we're able to do that through the generosity of many donors and events like our Sneakers Soiree. And at the end of each season, which you're well aware of, we have our celebratory 5K. So we do that twice a year, where the girls get to come out and really celebrate all the accomplishments that they've gone through over the last 10 weeks in the program. The 5K is probably my favorite event. We'll have anywhere between 4,500 to 5,000 people out there really celebrating these young girls.
So when you mentioned the fundraiser, when is that? Was that something that's just happened, or when?
It was this past March, and next year in 2025, it will probably be in March as well. We outgrew the venue first time out, so the team is planning right now and looking at new venue options. But it was great. We were very fortunate to have the founder of Girls on the Run come and speak at the Sneakers Soiree, and we also had one of the original 13 girls who was the first team of the program, and just really speak about her experience and what Girls on the Run has done for her now that she's a productive adult.
So how do girls get connected to the organization? Is it mostly through schools, like originally with country
schools,
with the country day school, or
PTA groups? We partner with the Junior League. We partner with other sororities. We're out in the community, so we really things like this, talking about Girls on the Run. So we have many different opportunities for promotion for the program, but primarily in the schools, partnering with the YMCA, Girl Scouts, YWCA. So I truly believe in partnerships. I don't think organizations can really do truly impactful, transformative work by ourselves. So I like to push the team to really look at developing partnerships with other organizations that have like missions like ours.
Yeah, very rarely is it a single individual, or it's always right. It's
Takes
always
a village, right?
Yeah, it really does. So, looking back on your time with Girls on the Run,
a whole year.
Okay, well, or maybe even with it doesn't necessarily have to be Girls on the Run, but maybe can you think of something in the last year where you saw or interacted with somebody, or a family, or a girl, or something specific that you said, "Wow, this is exactly why we're here"? An anecdotal story or something that you saw where this is exactly our mission. Yeah,
absolutely. We do site visits. And when I
Okay.
go out to sites and watch the practices, it's amazing to see some of these girls. And I'll go a couple times. In the first initial practices, girls are very shy. They're not really talking to one another. But by the time you get out, and from your daughters being in it, by the
Right.
time you go to the fifth or sixth practice, I got to sit and really watch other girls, cheer on other girls. Maybe they're a little faster than another girl, but they'll stop, they'll wait for them, they'll walk with them, talk with them, help them along. So that core value of really standing up for others or assuming positive intent from others, one of our other core values, I got to see in action, and that was so meaningful to me because that really told me I'm in the right place and we're doing the right type of work.
So I'm gonna ask you a question that I just thought of. So, which is dangerous. And I'm just like, oh Lord, he's going to go off script here. Um, we hear all this. How can I put it? This negative portraying of Gen Z or whatever. I'm not sure what age group that is. But my experience, especially the things I'm involved with, like in our community that's involved youth, actually, most of my experience has been the opposite. My experience has been, I go in, like a few weeks ago, we have an organization here called the Dream Center Academy. We had 3 students who just graduated high school. They came up through this program, and man, I'm like, well, future's in pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm.
When I see that, it's kind of how has your experience been? Because again, the Girls on the Run has been around long enough. 1996, I think, is what, if I wrote that down right, is when it started.
Yep.
So that's a couple different groups of
that is
how they're categorized. I'm not sure.
Millennials, X, Z.
Yeah,
I'm not really.
So
Sure.
What has your experience been when you see these youth and getting involved and progressing and learning, and how's your kind of general outlook with the kids that you were able to interact with?
I think I have similar experiences to you. I think that I'll call them that younger generation is very conscious of community, giving back, social action. The girls in our program also do a community impact project.
Okay.
So we're teaching them about community, standing up for your community, giving, back to your community. And these girls have gone from writing letters to seniors, to developing care packages, to raising money for breast cancer awareness. So I think they're very socially conscious about things that affect our community.
Yeah, I would say it's just different, right, than my outlook or what I was doing when I was 15 or 20. In fact, when I was 15 or 20, I wasn't doing very much impactful for anybody except myself, right? I mean, I had that classic, I'm 18, I know everything, and it's all about me. But my experience is that they have a different outlook and a little more mature outlook toward others, and to your point, community. Yeah. Listen, I've learned a lot from my kids about my old school view of the world, right? Versus how they view it, and I mean that in a positive way. I've learned a lot from them.
I think they have a lot more access, as we talked about. I think there are a lot more organizations out there that are really promoting of, being, as the kids say, woke or socially conscious,
right.
Really focusing on social action and things of that nature, probably more than our generation.
Oh, no question. And I'm sure I'm much older than anybody here in this room at the moment. Okay, looking back, I know, again, it hasn't been a long time. Is there something that stands out for you as maybe you're most proud of accomplishing, or something that you've seen happen in the last year during your time leading the organization, something that jumps out?
The first year going into any new role, lots of observing, lots of learning, kind of, you're kind of tossed in a few things.
Sure.
But, the volunteers on our board are some of the most dynamic individuals. And not all of them have that natural connection, maybe like you and I have had with daughters being in the program. But there's something about, for them, mentoring and being involved in the life of a young girl who's going to be tomorrow's women that I think really speaks to the board members that I have, and I'm extremely proud of the people who have given me their yes to be a part of the strategic outlook of Girls on the Run. So I'm very proud of that.
Okay, very good. So this is that classic question that we like to ask and hear from organizations. I mean, typically it's like, how do you vision the organization looking in 5 to 10 years? But I think like in our business here, we don't even do that anymore. Things change so fast. We might look at 2 or 3 years. We used to try to do these long-term planning, but gosh, I mean, technology, whatever, things change so fast. But just, are there plans that the organization has, or is it just expanding, trying to touch more girls? Just, what's kind of, how do you foresee the future looking for Girls on the Run of Greater Charlotte?
In the next couple of years, we really want to deepen and expand our reach. Since COVID, a lot of things in the schools and the communities are very different. We are trying to reestablish our connection here in Gaston County. We do have a number of sites here, but there's still a number of schools that we're not in yet.
Okay.
Lincoln County, Catawba, and Cleveland County as well. We're trying to reestablish those relationships. So again, to your point, really serving more girls, deepening and expanding our reach, and doing a lot of that work too through partnerships.
So I should have asked this question maybe early on. What exactly geographically does Greater Charlotte mean? What does that cover?
So it is Charlotte-Mecklenburg County,
Okay.
Cabarrus County, Gaston County, Lincoln County, Catawba County, and Cleveland County.
Okay. So that's a pretty broad area.
It is.
How
and
many,
all very different.
How many staff members are there, or is it all volunteer, or is there a staff as well?
We do have a staff, including myself. It's 5 of us,
Okay.
5 full-time staff, and we have a board of about 21 members on the board. So the staff do an amazing job.
Well, I was going to say, covering that's more than 5 counties. I think I heard that, right? So
yes, do an amazing job getting the work done, the impactful work done, and making sure that all of our sites have the things that they need. Volunteers have all the materials that they need. We train all of our volunteers. There's 4 hours of online training, 2 hours of in-person training for the volunteers, and then, of course, working with the board and our partners and raising funds throughout the year.
Is there an age group, age limitation there with the girls? And what is that? When does it start, and when does it typically see girls age out, or whatever, how you would describe that?
It's 3rd through 8th grade.
Okay.
Once they get into high school, they do have the option to be junior coaches.
Okay.
Which we do have a number of girls who are junior coaches as well.
So if a parent has a child at a local middle school here, and they hear this, what would be their steps to contact you guys, get with their school, or locally here? Because again, obviously, we're biased toward Gaston County. So what would their path be to maybe try to get a team or group, whatever?
Sure.
I'm not sure how to describe that.
Any of our listeners can just go to girlsontherun.org.
Okay.
They can put in their zip code on the website.
Okay.
And the local council information will pop up for them, and they just need to contact the council, and we will give them all the steps and information that they need to get a site at their school. Typically, if there's PTA groups or parents that are looking for the program in the school, a lot of those individuals will just go to the principal and say, hey, I heard about Girls on the Run, very interested in this program. All the school has to do is fill out a site application. Once we get that, we take care of the rest.
Okay.
We take care of all the marketing, the training, securing of the volunteers. We do all of that for the site.
So you mentioned the year-end 5K. Is that something that's one big event for the whole region, or is there potential smaller groups in each county that does their own 5K, or?
Right now, it's been one big event that we have twice a year at the end of each season. But as we begin to expand into these other counties, we are looking at changing that model up and possibly having, something farther west, something up north, and something south, because our 5K has tremendously
when you say
grown.
2 seasons, I'm assuming it's like the school year, it's the fall and then the spring. Okay,
yes, sir.
Very good.
Yep.
Yeah, I can come up.
He's got it. You're a former Goater dad.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because this will be the first year, which is that after 21 years of Gaston County schools, we would not have a child in Gaston County schools.
Oh, wow.
So it'll be interesting to see. My wife and I'll be looking for something to do, I guess.
And always come and volunteer.
Well, you know what? I am a runner still, and I'm involved with a group called F3, which is a men's group. I've never heard of F3. Well, there's a women's group called FIA. Mm-hmm. So I know we have been involved on and off with, what's the boys group called? Let Me Run. I think.
Let Me Run.
I think that's it because it's ours is a men's group, but I would be interested. I wonder if there's any connection with some FIA groups, because there's a lot of, there's running clubs and things like that. Because my youngest daughter actually, after Girls on the Run, she actually continued and ran cross country through high school.
Oh, okay.
And I'd like to think that some of that Girls on the Run stuff is what, prompted her to keep that up.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
And I will say the one thing that I think is a misconception sometimes about the program is and it's all in the name of the program.
That's great. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point.
Running is it's not a running club, but running is the tool, as you know, that we use in the curriculum so that they would learn those critical life
Well, that's
skills.
a good point, because I mentioned F3. Everybody thinks that's an exercise group, but its mission it's a leadership group.
Yep.
Right. So I appreciate you saying that, because, the runner in me will just, but yeah, obviously, there's much more to it. And I like how you described because F3 is similar in the fact that we're using exercise to bring people together.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a bigger mission, as opposed to just trying to get healthier. Right.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you saying that. So is there anything, I'll tell you, let me ask one other thing before I ask this last question. What's your greatest need at the moment? Is there something specific? Volunteers, just funding, just
all the above.
Okay.
No,
good.
We're always looking for volunteers year round.
Okay.
We have coaches, we have event volunteers. When we're packing materials, delivering materials to all 90 sites, we can always use volunteers for a number of different things. Funding's always important for any nonprofit.
Absolutely.
And we want to be able to serve more girls. And in order to do that, we do have to continue to increase our funding so that we can give out those scholarships that are needed in so many of the schools that we're trying to get into. And that can be done through individual contributions, sponsorships, things of that nature.
Okay. So before we finish, I'll make sure you've already mentioned the website, but we'll make sure that we cover any events coming up, how listeners can find out more information, get in touch with you guys. But is there anything I haven't asked that I should have asked? Anything you'd like to share before we finish up? Because we'll also give you the last word before we completely finish up.
No, I think you've asked all the necessary questions about the program, the mission. Again, people can go to girlsontherun.org to look up.
And it's a great website. I spent some time on there yesterday preparing for
all
today.
The information, and they can find a local council near them. Although we serve Gaston County, so we want everybody to contact Girls on the Run Charlotte, and we're happy to meet with whomever, talk with whomever, do presentations, things of that nature. As I said, we really want to deepen and expand our reach and really rebuild and reestablish relationships.
Well, as you know, Charlotte is the gateway to Gastonia. So, you know what I'm talking about every time I say that? There was a Saturday Night Live skit, and the guy on there said that Charlotte's the gateway to Gastonia. So anytime we have somebody from Charlotte area on, you have to say that. I have to put that in there, Karen. Sorry. So something that I guess we make our guest endure is what we call these speed round of questions. So we shift gears briefly. Okay. And this is really what the team, this is what the team at Girls on the Run wants to know. This is what your family wants to know. These are really critical, serious questions. Okay. Yes.
I'll prepare myself.
And I'm shifting gears because some of them, I have kind of two sets. One, if you're from Gaston County, we have these questions. But since you're not from Gaston County and probably don't know some of these intricacies of the greatest county in North Carolina, I'll shift gears. So are you ready?
Yes.
Have I got you fairly nervous enough?
A little bit.
So this is important. So what is your favorite movie?
The Godfather.
Oh, wow. Can we give an applause for that? So, so one of my personal things is I tell people you can learn everything you want to know in life from Dr. Seuss, Yoda, and The Godfather. I mean, it is really good. How about the last show or movie or something that you or your family viewed on streaming?
The movie about Bob Marley.
Oh yeah, okay. I haven't seen that yet.
So that's good.
I know just enough that it's an interesting story. How about your favorite vacation spot?
I love cruising.
Okay.
So to any island.
So
I
warm cruising.
Yes.
Okay.
I love a cruise.
You know, I'm almost embarrassed to say at my age, I've never been on a cruise before.
You've got to go. It's amazing. There's so
haven't.
much to do.
I just haven't. I don't know why. All right, this is a super important question. UNC Duke or NC State? And there's only one
I have to answer?
correct answer.
NC State.
If you can't see on the video, I'll just move my cup to make sure.
But I secretly am a Big Ten fan because I went to University of Illinois. But
Did you really?
am also a huge Michigan fan because my family's from Michigan.
Oh, wow. So that's kind of so what do you do when they play each other?
I root for Michigan.
Okay. So coming off a great year in football, right? After
15-0.
After last year, yeah. Yeah. I mean, NC State history had a pretty good sports year as well, making the Final Four, both men and women basketball. And my youngest is getting ready to go to NC State. Matter of fact, 2.5 weeks is move-in day. So, and I went to NC State, and my dad went to NC State. Matter of fact, I don't think I've shared
legacy.
this.
That's great.
She's living in the same dorm that my dad and I both lived in too. So it's just kind of an interesting and neat connection. So Karen, what is something very few people know about you?
Really?
Yes. This is
very few people know that
okay.
My family and I years ago tried out for Family Feud.
Did you really?
Yes, we did not make it.
How long ago, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, gosh, it had to be over 10, 15 years ago.
So
and we boycotted for a while because we didn't get on the show.
Would that have been when Steve Harvey was?
Oh, no, it was before.
Before Steve Harvey?
Him.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I grew up with, what was the guy's name? Richard Dawson.
Richard Dawson.
Kissing all the guests and everything.
It was after him.
Yeah,
but before.
Yeah, I figured that because I was super little watching that. Yeah, that's a first for that question. So well done. Yeah, we've never had anybody say they were almost on Family Feud. How about a book or a blog or article or a web podcast or something that you follow or something that you've read that you might recommend to our our listeners?
I will honestly say I don't do a lot of reading. I'm just starting to get into various podcasts about, financial wealth and things around money and investing and things of that nature. But I'm a community girl. So
Gotcha.
I'm out in the community. I thrive around being around other people and talking with people. So
Gaston's Great would be your podcast recommendation.
Absolutely.
And I just realized I saw your Michigan background on your phone, so I should have recognized that earlier before that other question. So,
yes.
Karen, we appreciate you indulging us on those on those few personal, local, maybe related questions. So again, a couple more questions, and we'll wrap this episode up. So, remember, this is a podcast about why Gaston County and our area. And we do, we've had more than one organization obviously on that serves more than just Gaston County. But besides Girls on the Run, why would you say Gaston and our area in general is such a great place?
I think this area is really growing. I, absolutely in my time that I've spent here, love the small town feel, if you will, very different from Charlotte, where everyone knows one another. It's a village, if you will.
Yeah.
And I just think towns like that are so important now with everything that's going on in the world, and I think that's what makes this county great and very special.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would agree with that again. But I'm a Gaston County homer completely. So, one last question, Karen. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
I would give my 20-year-old self, to get more involved in the community early. Make sure that I understand, just policies, social action, civic engagement. I would be more involved with those things at an earlier age.
Yeah, it's interesting that perspective. I think I've said more than once after that question or during discussions about that question is I'm afraid that real perspective can only come with, age and experience. I know when I was 20, specifically that, I had no concept or perspective on how the community worked, how it required involvement and volunteerism and just, civic engagement is a great phrase. And we have a great civic engagement leadership group and training here in Gaston County with through one of the organizations I'm involved with. But yeah, it just, my view of that at 54 is a lot different than 20, and wish I could, but I guess it's just hard. I think it's hard for a 20-year-old to have that perspective,
Yeah.
But I appreciate you sharing that. So, Karen, this has been great. You've already mentioned the website multiple times, so I'm going to assume that's going to be the best place to go. Is organization involved on social media and those type of things as well?
We are.
Okay.
Go to Charlotte. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We are on LinkedIn. So we encourage everybody to get engaged with us there. Lots of videos and photos and information. So there's multiple ways to get connected to Girls on the Run.
Okay, very good. So any last words or anything that you'd like to share about contacting you guys directly, or just any last words before we close this episode out?
Our fall season is going to start on September 16th.
Okay.
There is still plenty of time to get your site or your girl connected into the program. And one thing that, a phrase that we always say at Girls on the Run, which I'm sure you've heard before, is Girls on the Run is so much fun.
Right, absolutely. Well, that's great. Again, there's been more than one organization that maybe I've been involved with our kids, but, Girls on the Run is one that specifically I think about. Matter of fact, I can go to my phone right now and still have photos from, after post-race photos. And
did you have the happy hair? Was your hair sprayed? And
No, I probably refrained from that. But it seems like, was Girls on the Run involved with the airport run at one time?
We did.
Yeah. One of the best ones I had with my youngest is, and we were wrapped up, it was that time, I think it was December, seems like, or January.
Yeah, our 5K is in December.
Yeah. And I remember just being so cold, but there's a great photo of my daughter and I afterwards,
Oh, that's special.
And so, yeah, I can still just see that image. So, yeah, so it's good. It's also good for, parents and their kids. It gives them something to do together as well, right? If they
family connection in the program
Absolutely.
is very special.
Well, again, Karen, I appreciate your organization. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
And
thank you all for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to finish up like I normally do with my own book recommendation and quote or thought for the week. And I'm a big Pat Lencioni fan. He's a business guru, I guess, for lack of a better term. He's got a great podcast that I listen to as well called At the Table, which I think I've shared that before. But two of his books that I think are really good, they're called The Advantage and The Motive. And, they're business related. However, all his stuff has lessons that you can take into your everyday life. It's not just about business. And then my quote of thought for the week comes from, I've shared his book before, and maybe another quote from him, but a gentleman named Viktor Frankl, who wrote a great book called Man's Search for Meaning. And man, he's got a really interesting story. He was a Holocaust survivor and became a psychiatrist. Matter of fact, he was a psychiatrist before that. But anyway, he said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So I didn't, obviously it's funny how many times I pick a quote and then something during the discussion on the episode kind of ties in. So we were talking about younger kids and Gen Z and how there's this view of them in general, which, I've just also learned that, man, I can learn something from anybody I interact with, and changing my view of how they view the world and how, frankly, us old folks like me can learn something from them, and you can't change that situation, right? So I have to change my view of it and my outlook of it.
Absolutely.
And so again, Viktor Frankl, I can't imagine what he dealt with and when he was in Auschwitz and other places. So it's just interesting to keep that perspective. But again, I would encourage you to study him and look out and look into anything that he has going on. So to our listeners out there, thanks so much for taking time to listen to today's episode. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at our email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please follow us on all our social media platforms. Thanks again to Karen for being our guest today.
Thank you.
Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Naomi Hunt and Amy Anderson from GSM Services. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.